Good day. My name is Ina Kivitz and I'm currently a fourth year student completing my advanced diploma in human resource management. Today, my group and I will present to you academic PowerPoint presentation based on chapter 18, which includes the introduction to organizational change and the work done by Jack Wells in General Electric. The facilitators who participated in this academic PowerPoint presentation is Keenan Cruiser, Anisha Isaacs, Akila Marby, as well as myself, Zena Kivitz. The ground rules for this academic PowerPoint presentation are as follows. Everyone's input is equally valued. Respect each other's opinions. Everyone must be on time throughout the academic PowerPoint presentation. Keep phone on silent or vibrate mode during the session. Be open to concepts and ideas. Listen constructively to each facilitator while they are presenting the topic to you. Let's look at what the purpose of this academic PowerPoint presentation is. It is to enhance the employability of 2021 advanced diploma students in human resource management as well as human resource development by measuring what the theoretical relationship is between organizational change and organizational productivity in the company General Electric. Let's go. The journey of this academic PowerPoint presentation covers 10 outcomes, which are as follows. Terms of reference, theoretical paradigm, theoretical model, practical case studies, intervention, background to the study, literature review, research design and methodology, recommendation, and lastly, enhancing the employability of 2021 Advanced Human Resource Management and Advanced Human Resource Development students. Based on the terms of reference at the end of these outcomes, learners will be able to understand what this academic PowerPoint presentation entails, as the academic PowerPoint presentation's main keywords will be extensively defined in order to understand the multidisciplinary nature of this field. Organizational change is defined as any transformation that arises in the work environment as a whole. Organizational productivity is the capability of an organization, institution, or business to achieve a desired outcome within a minimum expenditure of energy, time, money, personnel, and material, etc. General Electric is a global digital industrial company. Robbins' organizational behavior model is an organizational behavior model which refers to a simple structure that demonstrates the relationship between variables at various levels in an organization. The systems theory approach is the view of the organization of an open social system that works together with the environment in order to survive. Jack Francis Wells was an American business executive, chemical engineer, and writer. He was the chairman and CEO of General Electric between 1981 and 2001. Jack Wells was GE's most well-known CEO who became a well-respected business manager because of his work at the company. Doctor Robbins is the world's best-selling textbook author in the areas of management and organizational behavior. Timothy A. Judge is the Joseph A. Aluto Chair in Leadership Effectiveness and the Executive Director of the Fisher Leadership Initiative. A boundaryless environment is a contemporary approach in an organization design. It is an organization that is not defined by or limited to the horizontal, vertical, or external boundaries imposed by a predefined structure. In terms of the theoretical paradigm, at the end of this outcomes, learners will be able to comply with academic rigor by understanding the theoretical perspectives included in this academic PowerPoint presentation, as the facilitators will fully outline the various theoretical paradigms, which includes biographical, psychodynamic, behavioral, cognitive, and human perspectives, as well as the systems theory. A theory is a statement of how and why specific facts are related, whereas a paradigm provides a basic image of society that guides thinking and research. Let's look at each of these five main approaches that guides the modern psychological research. In terms of the biological approach, it looks at how your nervous system, hormones, and genetic makeup affect your behavior. The psychodynamic approach believes that many of our impulses are driven by sex. In terms of the behavioral approach, it is believed that the external environment stimuli influences your behavior and that you can be trained to act in a certain way. The cognitive approach believes that your behavior is determined by your expectations and emotions. And lastly, the humanistic approach believes that you essentially good at what you do and you're motivated to realize your full potential. The systems theory was established in the 1940s by Ludwig von Bertalanffy in order to react against reductionism and attempting to revive the unity of science. The systems theory is an interdisciplinary theory about the nature of complex systems in nature, society, and science, and is a framework by which one can investigate and or describe any group of objects that work together to produce some results. It treats an organization as either an open or a closed system. The importance of the systems theory is the idea of interdependence between systems or subsystems. As researchers, we are using the systems theory because it mirrors the Robbins model. Let's look at the terms as well as practical examples of the work done in General Electric by Jack Wells to make it more clear. The systems theory includes the input, process, output, feedback, and environment. In terms of input, it refers to what resources you put into an organization in order to receive a desired outcome. An example would be in terms of General Electric, which is classified as the environment. Jack Wells made use of various resources such as information, technology, human resources, and capital, etc., to change the structures of the organization, which refers to organizational change in order to increase productivity within the organization. In terms of processes, it refers to the transformational process where one or more inputs transforms and adds value to activities and processes within the organization in order to provide desired outputs to customers and clients. An example would be Jack Wells changed the structures of various departments within the organization which consist of less bureaucracy. Output refers to the results obtained after running an entire process or just a small part of a process. An example would be output leads to higher productivity, higher return on investment, innovation, and effective team building for General Electric. In terms of feedback, it provides information to the organization by connecting the outputs to the inputs. An example would be feedback will be given to employees whether the results are positive or not. This will also allow GE to see if changes were effective or help the organization fix their mistakes. In terms of the environment, an organizational environment is composed of forces or institutions surrounding an organization that affects performance, operations, and resources. An example would be government regulatory agencies, competitors, customers, suppliers, and pressure from the public. This is an example of a systems theory based on organizational change and the work done in General Electric. The environment would be General Electric. Inputs will be raw materials, human resources, capital, technology, and information. The process would be employee work activities, management activities, technology and operation methods, strategic planning, team building, and communication. The outputs would lead to products and services, financial results, which refers to profits, human results, quality, innovation, increased team performance, and then there would be a feedback process where you would see if the results were effective or if not, where to improve the results. In terms of the theoretical model, at the end of those outcomes, learners will be able to fully comprehend what the theoretical model consists of, as the facilitators will thoroughly explain the independent variable organizational change, the dependent variable organizational productivity, and a full description of General Electric will be provided. The Robbins organizational behavior model refers to a simple structure that demonstrates the relationship between variables at various levels in an organization. The OB model consists of three levels, namely the individual level, the group level, and lastly the organizational system level. Our independent variable on the OB model is organizational change, which can be found in all levels, namely organizational systems level, group level, and individual level. Organizational change can be found in Chapter 18 in the Robbins and Judge textbook, and it can either affect the following dependent variables positively or negatively, which includes productivity, absenteeism, turnover, citizenship, deviant workplace behavior, efficiency, effectiveness, quality, return on investment, and legal compliance. The OB model consists of two variables and three levels. Empirical variables are empirical indicators of construct, which means that they are things that can be observed or measured. What is a variable? A variable is an object, event, idea, feeling, time period, or any other type of category you are trying to measure. There are two types of variables, namely your independent variable and your dependent variable. Independent variables are variables whose variations do not depend on another variable. They are controlled inputs whose variation depends on the researcher or the individual working with the variables. Dependent variables are variables whose changes depend solely on another variable, which is usually the independent variable. The value of the dependent variable will only change if the independent variable changes. I will be discussing the variables based on our theoretical model. The difference between an independent variable and a dependent variable is as follows. The independent variable is the variable that is the input, and the dependent variable is the outcome or perceived outcome. In organizational behavior, for example, one would be to measure productivity in General Electric with a flat organizational structure as opposed to an organization with a layered hierarchy. You're probably asking yourself the question, what are the variables based on our theoretical model? Our independent variable is organizational change, our dependent variable is organizational productivity, and the organization is General Electric. As discussed earlier, our independent variable, which is organizational change, can be found on all three levels of organizational behavior. Therefore, I will be outlining all three levels. First of all, let's look at the individual level. Here, organization behavior views the organization as an individual's behavior, studies the individual's behavior of how people react to organizational plans and policies, etc. Organizational behavior studies the impact of psychological factors upon behavior and job performance at an individual level. In terms of the group level, organizational behavior studies the impact of social and psychological group behavior factors on the behavior and performance of groups at the group level. The organization consists of groups and teams that work together in full cooperation and coordination of each other. Organizational behavior at the group level focuses on group interaction amongst members. The organization system level studies the behavior of an organization as a whole. Organization behavior has tried to analyze how the organizational structure designs and how technology influences organizational effectiveness. It tries to focus on the relationship between the organization and the environmental factors that affect the organization. Let's look at the link between the systems theory and the OB model. It includes inputs, processes, and outputs. Under each one, you'll find your individual level, group level, and organizational systems level. Here, your inputs will be similar to your independent variable, and your output will be similar to your dependent variable. Let's go a bit further. Now we will be emphasizing the linkage between the systems theory and the OB model. In terms of the inputs are variables like personality, group structure, and organizational culture that leads to processes. Many are determined in advance of the employment relationship. For example, individual diversity characteristics, personality, and values are shaped by a combination of an individual's genetic inheritance and childhood environment. In terms of processes, processes are actions that individuals, groups, and organizations engage in as a result of inputs that lead to certain outcomes. The individual level includes emotions and moods, motivation and decision making. The group level includes communication, power and politics, as well as conflict and negotiation. The organizational level includes human resource management and change practices. In terms of your outputs are the key variables that you want to explain or predict and that are affected by some other variables. Individual level includes attitude, stress, task performance, citizenship, and behavior. The group level includes cohesion and functioning, which are dependent on variables. At the organizational level, we look at the overall productivity and survival.
Today we'll be accentuating the practical case studies. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to understand and list Jack Wells' values. The lesson, as facilitators will explain in detail Jack Wells' values that he instilled in General Electric. Today we'll be speaking about Jack Welch values. Jack Welch values were the heart of communicating the corporate goals and culture with existing employees and newly acquired businesses, which includes create a clear, simple, reality-based customer-focused vision and be able to communicate it straightforwardly to all constituencies, right? Understand accountability, commitment, and be decisive. Set and meet aggressive targets always with underlying integrity. Have a passion for excellence and hate bureaucracy. Jack Welch values continues with have the self-confidence to empower others and behave in a boundaryless fashion. Have the capacity to develop global brains, global sensitivity, and be comfortable building diverse global terms. Stimulate and relish change. See change as opportunity and not as a threat. Love quality and drive cost and speed for competitive advantage. The last value that Jack Welch utilizes is leaders. Leaders love change and try to consciously change the competitive environment by focusing on quality and services. Leadership, Jack Welch, General Electric's 4 E's and 1P curve. Okay, to evaluate managers, General Electric started a system of differentiating managers on performance, but were hard pressed to identify the characteristics that differentiated managers on the vitality curve, which is essentially a grading curve or graph for managers. Jack Welch believes that employees at General Electric should have the following leadership characteristics in order to uphold the values that he instilled within the organization. Number one, leaders should inspire their co-workers, thereby encouraging them to perform today at a higher level than they did yesterday. Leaders energize, excite, and control using the company's values and cultures. Leaders are relentless and consistent, following through on everything they do meticulously. You might ask yourself, what are the 4 E's and the 1P proposed by Jack Welch? Well, the first E is positive energy. The explanation behind that is people with positive energy are usually extroverted and optimistic. The second E is ability to energize others. People who energize others have enthusiasm. People respond to them. They bring out the best in and bring out the best out in people. These leaders inject people with confidence and give credit when things are done right. The third E is edge is all about courage to make tough yes or no decisions. The explanation behind that is people with edge tackle problems heads on, deal well with change, identify new ideas, markets and opportunities, take calculated risk, and take ownership and responsibility for things that go wrong. The last is execute refers to the job getting done. Execute is the ability to deliver results. The last P is passion, means heartfelt, deep excitement for the work. The explanation behind that is people with passion care about their employees, colleagues, and tend to be more passionate about everything. Today we'll be discussing the 5 E's and the 1P. The first E is energy, the second one is energize, the third one is empathy, the fourth one is execute, and the fifth is edge. I'll give you a brief definition under each, and the last P is passion, right? Energy refers to the leaders have tremendous personal energy. Energize is leaders energize their teams, not intimidate them. Empathy is appreciate what your team is going through. Execute is leaders are action orientated and are focused on getting results. Edge is leaders have a competitive edge and will win. Passion is Passion means heartfelt, deep excitement for the work. Intervention. Today we'll be looking at the intervention. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to understand and identify the intervention Jack Welch implemented in terms of organizational change. The lesson involved is, as facilitators will fully define and explain the intervention Jack Welch implemented. As facilitators, we choose the boundaryless organization interventions as it closely relates to organizational change. With regards to the boundaryless organization, Jack wanted to knock down all barriers between functions within General Electric. He, he thought behind making General Electric boundaryless was to make suppliers and customers part of a single process. Meanwhile, as a leader, Jack Welch sees his role as removing any parts of the business that is slowing down momentum. Becoming boundaryless was an important step in eliminating any obstacles that could hinder the successful production of marketing of General Electric products. This intervention closely relates to our independent variable, which is organizational change, because it portrays all the changes Jack Welch implemented in General Electric in order to increase organizational productivity within the organization. The linkage between our variables and the boundaryless organization is as follows. Our independent variable is organizational change, our intervention is boundaryless organization, and our dependent variable is organizational productivity. The diagnostic process. The diagnostic process consists of three components, namely the pre-test, intervention, and post-test. With regards to the pre-test, this entails the measuring of the dependent and independent variables. With regards to the intervention is making interventions on the independent variable. Post-test. With regards to post-test, it involves remeasuring dependent and independent variables. Practical example of the diagnostic approach by measuring the independent variable, which is the organizational change, and the dependent variable, which is organizational productivity, after implementing Jack Welch's intervention, which we chose as the boundaryless organization. Pre-test. With regards to pre-test, it entails the dependent variable and the independent variable. With regards to the dependent variable, we measure organizational productivity. You might ask yourself, how on earth do you measure organizational productivity? Well, the only thing that you do is you take the units produced and you divide it by the number of employees. With regards to the independent variable, you would ask yourself, how does one measure organizational change? Well, you measure it utilizing various tools such as questionnaires, interviews, and one-on-one sessions. The intervention that we have chosen as a group is the boundaryless organization. Post-test. 5 months later, you might ask yourself, has productivity increased or has it substantially decreased? Well, all you do is you measure organizational productivity, which is the dependent variable, which involves units produced divided by the number of employees. With regards to the independent variable, you need to measure organizational change. How do you do that? You utilize various tools such as questionnaires, interviews, and one-on-one sessions. End result. Here we are. HA, which is the research hypothesis. And you have the HO, which is the null hypothesis. With regards to HA, which is the research hypothesis, involves organizational change that can be heightened through the intervention, which results in an increase in organizational productivity. On the other hand, you have HO, which is the null hypothesis. This involves the diagnostic process, which involves various elements such as the pre-test, the intervention, and the post-test. This can be carried out again. Background to the study. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to differentiate between the independent variable and the dependent variable. The lesson is as follows. As the facilitators will measure how the independent variable, which is organizational change, affects the dependent variable, which is organizational productivity, within General Electric. Identification of the problem. Let me give you some peace of mind. This particular study will focus on the company General Electric and how organizational change influence their organizational productivity. On the other hand, you have the research problem statement. What is the theoretical relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity within General Electric? The aim of the study. The aim of the study is to enhance the employability of advanced diploma students in human resource management. An additional aim is to expose students to the process of research methodology and the value of statistical measurement. Meanwhile, an additional aim is to educate students to understand how the research process works. Also, either accept the HA, which is the research hypothesis, or the HO, which is the null hypothesis. HA, research hypothesis. There is a theoretical relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity. HO, which is the null hypothesis. There is no theoretical relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity.
Literature review. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to understand and compare the theory of Robbins and Judge to the practical implementation Jack Welch done in General Electric. Lesson. As facilitators will give an example of the theory of Robbins and Judge and what Jack Welch done in General Electric. The following literature review is a comparison of all past literature done regarding organizational change, organizational productivity, and General Electric. Organizational change is about the process of changing an organization's strategies, processes, procedures, technologies, and culture in order to increase organizational productivity. Jack Welch was one of the few CEOs who was not afraid to change a business plan or structure if the outcome leads to increasing organizational productivity, which in turn increases General Electric's return on investment. This figure identifies the paradigm, the model, which is Robbins, organizational change, organizational productivity, and General Electric. Appreciative inquiry is an approach that seeks to identify the unique qualities and special strengths of an organization, which can then be built on to improve performance. It also focuses on organization successes rather than its problems. Jack Welch transformed the organizational structures of the business in order to adapt to a changing environment. Jack Welch set a target for GE to increase organizational productivity in order to become the most competitive enterprise on earth. But he suggested that only those businesses that were number one or number two in their markets should be nourished, and all the others should be divested. This figure is an illustration of the implementation Jack Welch done in General Electric. Design and methodology. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to prove the hypothesis of this academic PowerPoint presentation. Lesson. As facilitators will refer to two different journal articles, all regarding organizational change, organizational productivity, and General Electric, to help this academic PowerPoint presentation prove the hypothesis. These are the two journals we used in our academic paper. Journal 1. Effect of organizational change on employee productivity among selected commercial banks in Bujumbura, Burundi. East African Scholars, Journal of Economics, Business and Management. Journal 2. Organizational Change and Performance. African Financial Company, Sofina, SA. Cameroon. Central University of Applied Science Journal of Business Management. Sample of the first study. A closed questionnaire approach was used to collect data in order to test many research hypotheses to prove the relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity. A cross-sectional design was utilized. The researcher received 104 out of 116 correctly filled and answered questionnaires from employees of the four selected commercial banks in Bujumbura, making the retrieve rate 90%. This sample was regarded as enough to continue with the data analysis. Second study. A questionnaire survey was conducted as a way of collecting data among the employees of the company. 20 out of 28 questionnaires were received, making a respondent rate of 71.4%. These questions were structured to get a clear picture of how employees felt about changes in the organization, also how important it was to them undergoing these changes. Measuring instrument. First study. In terms of Journal 1, the researchers measured their two constructs by making use of a 5-Likert scale, content vitality index, CVI, person, linear correlation coefficient, PLCC, and Cronbach alpha. Second study. Here researchers measured their two constructs by making use of a quantitative research method. The options for answers were yes, no, and I don't know. The questionnaire was as short as possible to make it much easier for respondents to answer. Findings. Results analysis based on the first study. This study revealed that organizational change positively affects organizational productivity. As structural changes, for example, employee job functions and new policies, leads to improved performance through the quality of work. Strategic changes can positively affect employee productivity when changed or adjusted correctly. It can lead to employees meeting deadlines and also doing their work on time. After analyzing the theoretical study based on our variables and the work done in Bujumbura, Burundi, it is evident that there is a positive relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity. This is based on the second study. The findings reveal that organizational change is a necessity when wanting to improve organizational productivity in the Sophia's microfinance institution. Supporting predicted and unpredicted changes in the business environment allows the firm to gain a competitive advantage over its rivals. The results of this study show that when microfinance institutions support organizational change, performance also improves, which leads to better efficiency and higher productivity. After analyzing the theoretical study based on our variables and the work done in Sofina, it is evident that there is a positive relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity. Discussion. The purpose of this study is to measure the theoretical relationship between organizational change and organizational productivity in General Electric. We tested our hypothesis relationship by making use of past literature. Both journals came to similar findings and results. The employees in the commercial bank in Bujumbura, Burundi felt that technological changes in the organization has affected them and their jobs positively. It was discovered that at the level of employees and management of Sofina, they all had responded that there is a positive impact of organizational change on the productivity of the institution. It is clear that there is a strong correlation between the two variables, and it is evident in General Electric, Bujumbura, Burundi, and Sofina. Therefore, the HA research hypothesis can be accepted. Recommendations. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to manage organizational change within an organization. Lesson. As future human resource professionals, we will encounter many challenges within organizations, one of them being managing organizational change. Therefore, facilitators have researched methods on how organizational change can be managed within an organization that can be beneficial to the organization's productivity. The oldest and the strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and the strongest kind of fear is the fear of unknown. The following are useful tips in terms of effectively handling organizational change within an organization. Overcoming resistance to organizational change. Engaging with employees in the workplace about changes. Implementing organizational change in phases. Communicating the change. Enhancing the employability of 2021 Advanced HRM and D students. At the end of this outcome, learners will be able to observe how to apply themselves during an interview by using Robbins and Judge theory linked to interventions used by Jack Welch, in addition to understanding what leadership roles Jack Welch believed in. Lesson. Facilitators will be playing two video clips. The first video deals with Jack Welch explaining how to conduct yourself in an interview, and the second video, Jack Welch speaks about the roles a leader should portray according to organizational change. This slide consists of the two videos mentioned before. Video number 1, How to Conduct Yourself During an Interview by Jack Welch. Video number 2, The Role of a Leader and Implementing Organizational Change by Jack Welch. Please go and have a look at the videos, and I hope that you enjoy the videos while watching. The most important facts to remember. Investing in initiatives to promote organizational change can help employees feel that the organization is committed to change. Being open to change leads to positive employee attitudes and as well as an increase in bottom line performance. Organizations must develop adaptability to change to prevent being swept away by the forces of change. Tips to remember. Effective organizational change management allows the company to maintain a constant state of evolution and facilitate periods of general business change, which allows employees to remain motivated and productive during the introduction of new technologies and procedures. Therefore, if the organizations fail to adhere to adaptability and flexibility, it will hinder their profitability of maintaining a competitive edge. Thank you for listening to our academic PowerPoint presentation. I hope you gained as much knowledge in terms of organizational change, organizational productivity, and the work done by Jack Welch in General Electric in order to become more employable in 2021. Bye!